Come out boxing, buddy.
Morning, everyone. My video didn't work, so we're going to try it again because I love it. For me, I need to psych myself up. So let's just go back there and...
He is exceptional.
Okay,
International.
not going to work. It doesn't matter. Let's let it go. How are you guys doing? Sure, the lights are too much, hey? Just like hectic. So I want you to imagine with me two farmers, right? Two farmers, a pessimistic farmer and an optimistic farmer. Work with your imagination. I know it's early Saturday morning. Work with your imagination. They get together, and the pessimistic farmer is having a chat with the optimistic farmer. And the optimistic farmer says, "What a beautiful day, the sun is out." And the pessimistic farmer says, "Well, you know, the sun's not really good for our crops. It's going to burn our crops." So they meet a week later, and the optimistic farmer says, "It's raining. What a beautiful day. It's good for our crops." The pessimistic farmer says, "Yeah, but you know, if it rains too much, hey, it's going to flood our crops." They meet a week later, and the optimistic farmer says to the pessimistic farmer, he says, "Have you seen my hunting dog?" He says, "You mean that little skinny-looking dog?" He says, "Yeah, it's an amazing hunting dog." He says, "Nah, there's no way that dog can hunt." He says, "I'll prove it to you." And so they go out hunting. And while they're out hunting, the optimistic farmer shoots a duck, and the duck lands in the lake. Work with me. And the dog walks on the water and fetches the duck, brings it to dry land. And the pessimistic farmer says, "Shame, your dog can't swim." There's always a negative narrative wherever you go. And I'm hoping this morning we can move our minds and shift them into this positive environment that we find ourselves in as we take the lead. So I've been asked to speak on Take the Lead. It's actually weird when you talk in this. I'm on the screen, so cool. Take the lead. Here are some of the critical requirements from leadership in terms of how to take the lead into the future. This is a study that was done by World Economic Forum for 2015. And I just want to show you the difference between 2015 and 2020 and what has changed. So, for example, if you look at this slide, and I know it looks a bit complex, you can see how some things have fallen off and some new things have come up. For example, critical thinking has gone from fourth to second. And it says to me that we are living in a very complex environment, which means we need people to think more strategically to be able to solve the various problems that you'll face. And those problems could range from gaining more market share to struggling with economic challenges that we see in our country. Another one is creativity, which didn't even exist in 2015. It's top 10. How creative are we to bring about new solutions? And that's part of taking the lead. It means being very observant and being discerning in your environments to be able to see what new things can happen. But critically also is emotional intelligence. And I always use, a great example of emotional intelligence, especially in Gauteng, is those people are always in traffic. They say taxi drivers have got the highest emotional intelligence in South Africa. Like they do, high EQ. Like if you try and block a taxi driver and they bliksem you, you know you deserve it because they're like really patient. But you and I, when we're driving from Sandton to Johannesburg or from Pretoria to Johannesburg, and we're on the left lane, the one that's near the taxi lane, it's the emergency lane. If we are in our cars and there's a gap between your car and the car in front of you, equivalent to the size of a taxi, you don't mind that gap prevails, provided there's no taxi coming. The moment you see a taxi, you can even see the people from Gauteng. You start closing the gap. Although all along, you didn't mind that there was a gap, right? Suddenly you feel threatened and your emotional intelligence goes south. Have you ever seen a taxi driver saying like, "Oh, okay, I'll just drive in behind you"? They don't. They go to the car in front of you, which is often me, and they cut in front of me because I'm that guy. Because let's be honest, when a taxi driver cuts in front of you, is he there to stay? No. He's looking for the next gap. And sometimes we don't even see that opportunity. That sometimes we're majoring in these little minor discussions because of our low emotional intelligence, and we don't see the opportunities to actually grow our businesses. So emotional intelligence, very important factor. So I want to share with you just some of the leadership styles and how they've changed over the years. And this point really shows you that in the pre-leadership era, about 1,000 years ago, people didn't have rights in the work environment. It was dictatorial. Someone would come up and just say, "Right, that's it, I want you at work. As soon as your eyes open in the morning, you're in my office and you're working, you don't have lunch." It's like the slave trade. But out of that came great results. The pyramids of Egypt were built in that time. The Wall of China. And then came the next level, authority. And authority became a beautiful thing because it was just similar to pre-leadership, only now you had lunch break. But they still call the shots, you know. So if it was Stacey would just come up and say like, yeah, you will do the work, you will have a lunch hour for half an hour. And that was it. That was about 500 years ago. But the world changed, and we realized, actually, we need an influential environment. We want to influence people, but influence simply meant, I want you to do what I want you to do. That's what it was. So I tried to throw all my ideas on you, and you had to do them the way I wanted to. And that's where we find ourselves. And that was about 50 years ago. It was the year of reason. We thought it was reason, but it wasn't reasonable because it was about what I wanted to achieve. But we have to begin to move into this area of inspiration. And inspiration means we work in a collaborative environment. It means that we work together, we solicit your ideas, and we make this organization a better organization. And that's the idea of moving from command to inspiration. And you can see the correlation between the red line and the blue line. The blue line is the follower, the red line is the leader. And over a period of time, as the leadership styles changed, the gap becomes closer and closer. And at some point, we want to find a space where the lines actually merge, but still, there's a fine line between leaders and those who follow. And that would be a great place to be. So, some of us are still struggling with poverty mindset. It's something that we need to keep a gap between mindset, poverty mindset, and yourselves. Because poverty mindset keeps going after you. You've got to keep that gap. And you've got to move fast away from this poverty mindset. If it means running, you've got to run. Lovely. So I want to share with you guys just 5 key ideas around how we can take the lead. And after that, I will give you 2 charges which I think are critical in terms of us going forward. And then, if all else fails, I'm going to sing. I'm not joking. I will sing. It's a solo. I want to emphasize. It's a solo. You know the song, but it's my time. Yeah. Actually, if this was in the States, I'd probably sing the national anthem and then I'd get a standing ovation. But in South Africa, you can't do that. You sing the national anthem in South Africa, all you get is... So we don't want vuvuzelas in the room. So let's get to it. So my first point this morning is about how we can develop an exponential mindset. I truly believe that the way that businesses are run today means we need to think very differently. In fact, anything that you want to achieve in life means you need to have a mind shift. You have to change the way that you think. In fact, because we are such emotional human beings, a lot of the decisions that we make are based on how we feel. But we need to start activating how we think. This is why even when it comes to election times, the narrative is how do we make people feel so that when they're in the booth, they vote for a particular party. So a few years ago, I was going to the booth and I had enough of ANC, and I'm like, this is it. It's over for the ANC. I'm tired. I'm voting for the DA. And so I walked into the booth. Guys, this is private. You keep it here. No social media stuff. Eh? And I'm in the booth, and I got that long yellow card, and I'm reading. And then the emotions came. Because I read and I looked, and all I thought of was, Tina says we... Damn, I did it! Anyway, so the way that we think becomes important. Emotionally, it's fleeting. It's really not real. And we need to think very differently about it. One of my disclaimers is I love Woolies. Yes, I like Pick n Pay and ShopRite, but I love Woolies. I really love Woolies. I live in Midrand, so I go to Sandridge. And I'm emotionally attached to Woolies. Because when Woolies opens, they're ready for you. Like there's no one still mopping with a yellow sign. Now I got to step over the yellow sign and the lady's still there looking and like, doesn't go to mop. There's nothing like that. Woolies, you're ready. Oh, by the way, Woolies is very cold. The coldest retail in terms of temperature. And there's a psychology. Let me tell you, cold environments make you buy more. I didn't come for chicken. I came for chocolate mousse, heaven on earth. But right across the aisle from chocolate mousse is chicken for 85 rand in my trolley. And also, you think they're trying to save shelf space by making you push the trolley all the way down and you have to come all the way back up. No, they're upselling you without even speaking to you. Because as you move down, there's a couple of chocolates, there's a magazine, and you turn around, and there's all those weird things. By the time you get to the front, you came to spend $100, you end up spending 238 rand and 16 cents. I can't say that number again. And then, of course, for us guys, the chicks that serve us at Woolies, they're young, they're fresh, they're beautiful and hot. Their mothers work for ShopRite. It's a really interesting place where we find ourselves. But what I'm saying, we cannot rely on emotions because we will do the wrong things. So let me share with you something very important. There's what is known as incremental thinking and exponential thinking. In any business environment, when a business grows in a linear or incremental format, it's literally, you can see it's a straight line. But business is not a straight line. You cannot say to me today that Johnson & Johnson wants to grow by 20%, therefore we will measure 20% over 12 months, and it's actually linear. It doesn't work because something will go wrong in the market, government regulation will change, new competition will come in, a scandal will break out. So it's like this, and that's what happens in your environments. So the idea is this, is that in an incremental versus exponential space, incremental thinkers are only thinking about doing things better. And better, yeah, it's great, but it's not the best thing. When you do things better, you might get organic growth, a 6 to 10%. But exponential thinkers are looking to do things differently. And when you do things differently, you get a 10 times effect. And it's not easy because the exponential path does not take off as quick as the incremental. And I'll show you a graph. So over a period of time, and if you think about the launch is not a launch of a new business necessarily. It's the launch of, say, a change in the environment. Like, guys, how many of you have been affected by change in this organization? It happens all the time. Change, like we should even stop talking about change because it's normal now. So when something happens and change takes place, for example, the first thing that happens is we have to have a vision, but there's a lot of uncertainty. And the blue line, which represents exponential growth, does not take off as quickly as linear because linear is a straight line. But as the phase moves into the build phase, this is where we begin to build on all the vision things that we've put together. This is where we need more courage and patience because it is the gap that is the widest between linear growth and exponential growth. And this is where most people get off the exponential path and try and get into a safety zone. But ultimately, when those lines cross over, when you begin to grow, two things are critical. You have to become agile because your growth is exponential, but you also need to put key controls in place that will manage this exponential growth. And I hope I'm making sense. So let me give you an example. So way back before Google Maps, Nokia launched the Nokia Maps. Brilliant organization. I mean, if you've never owned a Nokia, you haven't lived, my friend. The 3310. Oh, man, we love that phone. For two reasons, battery life and Snake. Like when I think about Snake today, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? So what did Nokia do? Nokia decided they want to be the leaders in mapping in the world. They bought a company called Navtech for $8 billion. And Navtech had physical infrastructure to be able to support GPS coordination. And there they were. They had all these different sources built on Navtech. But then came this organization, Waze. I'm sure when they came up, Nokia must have said, no Waze, man. My daughter would have said, Dad, that's cheesy. These guys did not have to buy a large organization with infrastructure. All they did was piggyback on your GPS location using the services of Navtech through Nokia. And within a period of 2 years, they had more location services on their virtual network than Nokia had. Plus, if you've ever caught an Uber today, they only use Waze, most of them. Don't want to generalize. Most of them use Waze because it's a collaborative environment using crowdsourcing information so you can tell where there's a traffic roadblock coming up and all your traffic fines are going to be exposed so you can use the different routes. An amazing way. So this was exponential thinking. Great example because what the leaders of Waze did was like, why don't we change the status quo? Do we have to spend so much money when something already exists and we can use the services of Navtech in a way that impacts our consumers? So exponential thinking, ladies and gentlemen, is critical. I want you, when you go back to your environments and think about yourselves, and just think about the last 3 or 4 years and say, have I been thinking exponentially? And what proves that I have? What are the different things that I've done over the years? Or am I just like, okay, when I get my targets for the year, oh, they want me to grow how much? Don't they know the economy is only growing by 5 point what? Okay, it's not even 1% in South Africa. It's like there was a time when the governor said, we expect that our economy will grow by 0.0%. I'm like, grow. But I suppose it's a measure of growth. Zero doesn't make sense. Exponential growth. The next point is about self-leadership. And very often I find that when we talk about leadership, we talk about what leaders are and what leaders must do. But sometimes we fail to introspect and actually look at ourselves and say, how am I doing as a leader for myself? What are the kind of things that I need to be aware of? So there are 6 components around self-leadership. The first is self-awareness. How aware are you of your own behaviors in the work environment? How aware are you of the way that you impact people through your conversations? In fact, we've become such a digital nation, a digital world, that sometimes we hardly speak to each other. A lot of the times we WhatsApping each other and emailing each other. You get to the office and you're like literally in an open plan and you're greeting someone sitting just here. Hi. Hi. Did you see the shoes? Who's? Ah, come on, guys. Stand up. Hi, how's it going? Did you see so-and-so's shoes? Within a few seconds, you're done. We have to begin to build interpersonal relationships where we shake each other's hands, where we embrace each other, and we become real human again. In fact, the whole concept of B2B, B2C, C2B is actually a fad now. Most organizations are looking at going from human to human. It's become more important. So self-awareness is important. Self-confidence is critical. And self-confidence has to go with self-efficacy because that's about self-belief. If you're in an environment, what type of energy do you bring to a room? Like when you walk into your environment with your colleagues or with those that you lead, do people clamor for you and like, me, please come over here, I need your help with something, I need your advice on something, or is it like, ooh, on the phone? And then your phone rings. Are you... And that's the amazing thing about self-efficacy and self-confidence. It's about the presence that you bring, your executive presence. And I always use the example, if Nelson Mandela was still alive and he had to walk into this room, the first thing that would happen is first we'll all weep, not because he came back from the dead, but like even if he was alive. We would weep because he was like a statesman. He had this aura about him. And then we'd all just wait in anticipation for his cough. That was power, man. Sometimes we walk into an environment and we don't even want to hear you speak because the first thing you will utter is like just condemnation. Mandela just coughs and we love him. And then when he speaks, good morning, you feel like, So we need to develop confidence. And sometimes we might not be at the point or level that we want to be at in terms of our competencies and abilities and capabilities, but we can still show up confidently. You know, I can tell you as a speaker, I've been speaking for 17 years. The first time I started speaking, I used to be so nervous. I used to get on stage, but no one saw it. I used to wear baggish pants because I would be like this, but no one would see it because the pants were a bit baggy. And I had to do things and trick the system to be able to just get a bit more confident. And I went on an assertiveness course one time, and I was taught in this course that actually when you're presenting to people, people are rooting for you. You have to really screw up for them to start saying, you know what, actually this is a waste of my time. So are you guys rooting for me? Thank you. Confidence, self-efficacy. When you have those 3 key internal controls, the next thing is to have clarity of intention. Clarity of intention. You see, intention's good. It's not everything. But if you have intentions, your whole body, your whole system, you know, we work in our bodies and our systems and the way we think are all one big unit that are kicked off by the way that we think. So when we have intentions about doing something, the actions are kind of waiting and saying like, okay, I hear your intentions, what do I need to do? So intention must lead to action. But what are your intentions? Are you working on a routine type of intention? Do you wake up in the morning and like, okay, I got to go to that place. It's cool. I got a great job. I got a nice salary. Yeah. I can't wait for the holidays. Or do you wake up and say, you know what, today, it's a different day today. I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to say this differently. You know, so-and-so, I've been greeting them first for the last 10 years. Guess what? I'm going to carry on doing it. Because sometimes we get so upset that we have to greet people first. Sorry, man, what's your name? Nomonde. Good morning, Nomonde. It's like 3 words. But we get freaked out after a while because Nomonde never greets me first. Just carry on doing it. There's nothing wrong with that. And that speaks to intention. When we have good intentions that are clear, we become more influential. People begin to see a different attitude in the way that we deal with each other. And influence is important because, as I said earlier, it's the time just before inspiration. But you need it. You need some level of influence that says when you're in the room, things happen. And finally, ultimately, it's about impact. Not only with your colleagues or your peers, but with your customers. And this is why Nokia is actually a good business case. When you think about Nokia, Nokia went under for two key reasons. Number one, they were obsessed with the competition. Stephen Elop in 2011, he used to say, I can't sleep because of Apple. Apple want to take my market share. Apple didn't even change their strategy. They weren't interested in Nokia. They were just charting their own creative course into the future. Samsung as well weren't worried about Nokia's growth because they were the market leaders. They just said, how can we make Samsung better? But Stephen couldn't sleep. And he marketed and he threw all his money on challenging Apple. But Apple did nothing about it. And what we know is that Samsung took Nokia's market share completely. And Apple did nothing. Their market share kind of flatlined. I mean, I wish I was on the board of directors of Samsung at the time. You do nothing and you gain market share. Can you imagine? Sitting, those board meetings must have been all of 20 minutes. You get together and you're like, Nokia. That was it. That was it. Board meeting over. Do you know that sometimes you don't have to do much to gain more? Whilst we're always trying to do things to have impact, sometimes you need to just take a step back and say like, hold on, I'm actually going to just wait and I'll have impact. You know, they even say that, like with speakers. When I did my speaker course, we used to be told, you know, there are creative ways of speaking. To look profound, I could walk up here and like walk like this. And suddenly I look like a professor. And with me, I wear glasses. I could look profound and stand and say, ladies and gentlemen, the emergence of technology, it's amazing how when we look at it, suddenly I look like I'm intelligent. I took my glasses off. Or like when they say you have to open your hands to look like you're all welcoming and all, you know, like, so I'll say, all of us in this room, we are wonderful. Say to your neighbor, you're one. And then suddenly you feel like, oh, he's so welcoming. Or the power of pause. It has impact. Like, because you're waiting for what I'm going to say next. So what are you doing that will create impact, or what are you not doing that can create impact? Because both of them work. Let's talk about change. My next point. Embracing change. Important. Let me tell you, life is a journey of discovery. There are two kinds of people. Those who either embrace change or those who don't want to embrace change. And the reality is we are changing constantly. By the time you leave this place, you would have aged slightly. You can't see it yet, you know, but you would have aged a bit. But what is it about change in our environments that we are fearful of when change is happening all the time? It's something that is natural, that is constant, that we must embrace, but it cannot be instructed. It's something that you've got to tune your mind to. So I'm going to ask you all to stand to your feet. Maybe we can have some house lights. We're not going to dance or anything. So what I want you to do, and you got to do this right, just stand facing me and just fold your arms, like, you know, just naturally, just fold your arms. I know the guys at the back, they're still drinking tea, no one's folding their arms. Just fold your arms. I mean, like, how difficult was that? It was like easy, right? Just fold your arms. Now, I want you to reverse fold your arms. So if you have your left hand on top of your right, just do it the other way. Not 360. All right. So let's have a seat. Let's have a quick conversation about that. And I'm sure we've got some roving mics. And I actually want to start with you because I saw you on Monday. Have a seat. Where are the mics? Thank you, Mark. So when I said to you, so don't worry, I'm putting you on the spot. Come on, make her feel some love. Give her some. So my question to you firstly, Nomonde, is when I said stand up, how did you feel?
Oh my goodness, what now?
So that's changed, right? Because you were sitting, you were comfortable, like, okay, this guy was booked to come and speak to us. Now we have to stand. We're part of the presentation. Can't you just speak and finish, right?
Yeah.
But when I said to you, reverse fold your arms, I saw you like going 360. What went through your mind?
Uncertainty. Am I doing it right? Why reverse fold my arms? Because I've always done it this way. Yeah.
Did you have to think?
Yes.
Because it wasn't natural.
Yeah.
Right. Anybody else? Anybody else with different feelings? Or must we just go random? Let's go random. We had a black chick. Let's find a white guy. A white guy. Here's a white guy. How did you feel about doing that exercise?
Yeah, fine.
Let's just show him some love. Let's just do that. Let's do that. Say your name, what province you're from, and how many children you... Okay, not kidding.
From Durban, lovely city. We surf most of the time, but it's my manager over here.
So when I asked you to stand up, how did you feel? Not
Fine.
now.
No, good.
Were you cool?
Yeah,
Like comfortable?
No, I wasn't in a hassle at all.
How did the exercise work for you? Was it easy?
You have to think about it, but it wasn't that complicated.
It wasn't that complicated for you.
No, not too
So you see, it's different. Change affects people differently. You had a bit of a struggle going all full circle. For one moment, I thought you were going to do the voice show. I don't know. That was like the way it was. And then we must find, maybe let's find an Indian person. Where are you in all? How's it? So tell me, how was your experience?
Same as Werner. I mean,
Not too difficult.
it wasn't difficult, but you have to think about what you're doing.
But you have to think about what you're doing, right? And that's the thing about change. Thanks, Mark. That's the thing about change is when things begin to change, you can't just continue in the same status quo. You've got to start thinking about, okay, hold on, things have changed. Suddenly, I need to think about how I react to it or how I respond to it and how I do things differently. But the problem most of us have with change is this. We generalize the response. We generalize our reaction and we're like, oh, leadership in Johnson & Johnson just came and they changed everything. No, they didn't. Do you have a chair to sit on? Yes. Did you have a chair yesterday? Yes. So not everything's changed. Not everything. Did you have a laptop yesterday? Yes. Do you have a laptop today? Yes. Not everything has changed. Did you have an office yesterday? Yes. Do you have one today? No. That has changed. But it's not everything. Jason Clark, and you can watch him on TED Talk, talks about the 4 doors of change. In the first door, he says, the things that we used to be able to do and can still do, right? So think of a change environment. Even now, whatever changes have taken place at J&J, there are some things that you could do before, and even now you can still do them, right? Think about those things. Not everything's changed. The second door says the things that we couldn't do before and we still can't do. So there's some things, for example, you're not putting toxic things into your products and services. You didn't do it before, you ain't going to do it now. But the organization has changed. The third one is the things that we could do before, now we can't do. That's change. That's affected you. Now, because we can't do those things, how does that change my environment? How does that change the way I behave? How does that change the way that I act in this environment? It means I have to think twice about folding my arms in reverse. The fourth one is this: the things that we couldn't do before, but now we can do. So you see, there's a negative response to change, but there's also a hugely positive one. Sometimes we can't see the positive change because we're stuck in our old ways. They're those kind of people who've worked for the organization for many years, and you come up with a new idea because you're new in the block, and you're like, how about we try to do this? They're like, oh, we tried that in 1998. Didn't work. I can tell you now, by the time you came to this conference this morning, there are some things you couldn't do, but because of technology, by the time you leave this conference, you will be able to do. Because the world is changing so fast. Some of us are even scared to go on leave because when we come back, it's like there's so much change that's taken place. So there are a few ideas around change. The first one is about ownership. When we are running change management in any organization, ownership does not work the best way. And ownership is about the leader saying, guys, this is what's happening, this is the change that's coming, and you must embrace it. What happens in that environment? People will be like, why must we? No one spoke to me. I must just do what you want. There's no level of inspiration. This becomes a command type of leadership. But we need to move into a space where it's all about authorship. The change comes in this format. Guys, this is what's about to happen in our organization. We need to change A, B, and C. How do you think we can go about it? What are the kind of things that you think you can contribute to this change? What are the type of conversations should we be having? Who else can we include in the conversation of change? And suddenly you become an author to change. Therefore, you buy in more. Therefore, you embrace it easier. And many people will be like, change is not good. This thing of change all the time is not good. Have you ever heard of Renovator's Delight? Ever? That's a question. Ever heard of it? Let me tell you what it is. Renovator's Delight is an amazing change philosophy. Whenever you decide you want to renovate your house, there are certain things that you want to throw out, and there's certain things that you want to bring in. You might want to paint your living room a different color. Maybe that stove's too old, so you want to replace it with a new stove. Maybe you want to change your garage around. Maybe you want to build a second story if you don't have one. Maybe you want to extend your pool. Whatever it is, that is Renovator's Delight. It is change. And that's normal. No one will say like, oh, no, you know what? I don't want a nicer swimming pool. I don't want to extend my house. But we're doing change all the time. Now, if you think about change, and you don't want to buy the idea of change, then we need to speak to a couple of industries also to stop it. For example, the fashion industry. We need to say to the fashion industry guys, actually, we can't have any fashion shows, because every fashion show is about change. We need to tell all the ladies in the room, guys, no more new nails, no more haircut, no more changes of hairstyles. Because why are you doing that? You want to change something. We need to speak to the tourism industry and say, guys, there's no point in trying to market the different tourism destinations because people only want to go to the same destination for holiday every single year. But no, people want to try different places. That is change. We need to tell all the cheaters that, listen, okay. So you know what I'm saying. Renovator's Delight is a great idea of how, in a home environment where we naturally want to change, can we adopt the same philosophy in our workplaces? Then we talk about teamwork. So I want to show you this video. Many years ago, how many of you follow Formula One? Yeah. I don't, but let me see. I don't. I used to follow Formula One back in the day when it was still it and Senna and back in the day, right? Before Schumacher. And the thing about motorsport is that teamwork is critical. You can actually gain valuable time in the pit lane when you're coming in to change your tires and to refuel. Teamwork. We are all one team. We might be ranked differently, but we're all one team. I want to demonstrate or illustrate to you the power of this team. Granted, it's in the new year, 2017, way after 1950, and obviously there's a bigger team. But let me tell you, to change 4 tires in 2 seconds is phenomenal. Why do I say that? You've got 3 guys here on the left corner, the guy with the tire, another guy next to him, and another guy. Those 3 guys' job description is to change 1 tire. The guy with the tire, his job description is to put this new tire when that other tire gets removed. That's your job description. Don't be meddling with other people's jobs. He can't be saying to the guy who's jacking the car's about to come, make sure you jack it high enough. That guy's got his own job. In fact, his life is under serious threat. He has to trust that the driver's going to stop. There's no guarantees. Maybe the driver woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Teamwork is important because trust becomes a critical component. The guy in the middle has got the gun that removes the bolt and puts the bolt back. That's all he has to do. Take the bolt out, put the new tire, screw the bolt back on. This guy on the right, he's waiting just to take off the tire. And you've got these 4 teams all around the car, right? It's an amazing way of understanding the critical importance of trust. When the driver comes in, let's say that's Stacy. She comes in, she stops on time because she doesn't want to kill that oak. This vehicle does not have rearview mirrors, so she can't be checking out, okay, tire on, okay, I think I'm good to go. She has to trust in the traffic light system on the top there. As soon as that light's green, she has to hit the accelerator. And she has to trust that, number 1, all 4 tires are on, 2, that they're screwed on tight enough for me to take the curve without the car collapsing. The whole idea of teamwork depends a lot on trust. But trust is not just about trusting each other as people, it's about trusting the process. It's about trusting the strategy. It's about committing to the strategy. It's about saying, I'm all in. It's about saying, when we leave this conference, even if I had a few ideas and maybe I said some certain things and people didn't buy into it, when we leave as one. And I park my own little idiosyncrasies and I commit to what we've agreed on. My final point is own your stuff. Take responsibility for your actions, for your choices, and for your decisions. It's up to you. You can do that. You know, I always find that people who say, let's take responsibility, are simply reacting to what's happened in the press, and now suddenly they're just taking responsibility. I'm very sorry. I'm sorry for the mess we had. I take full responsibility. What does that mean? Like, so your words must make me feel cool? That you said, I take full responsibility? It doesn't work. In fact, they've said the word responsibility can be separated into 2. One, there's a response to what's happened, and there's the ability, which is the action that must be taken as a result of whatever's gone wrong. But I want to say to you, taking responsibility is not about being reactive to something that's happened. You can take responsibility proactively and say, you know what, when we leave this place, I am taking responsibility for ensuring that we enhance our departments, that we enhance the way that we think, that we improve our sales capabilities, that we develop ourselves more. That's proactive. But also, if things do go wrong, I'm going to pick up the phone and apologize to my client, and I'm going to say to my client, this is what we did wrong, and this is how we're going to mitigate this risk in the future so it never happens to you. That's taking responsibility. Not telling me like, I'm very sorry, I take responsibility. And then, what must I do? Must I now do the nay and be excited? So great stories about this young man, Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah, like, what a cool dude, right? He's got a great story to tell. Like most of us now know, he's on The Daily Show, he's a great comedian and everything. But when he started out his comedy career, it wasn't all, success immediately. But when he did do his first solo show, stand-up show. So a solo show is kind of like you're the main act, maybe you have one curtain raiser. It's not like a whole lot of acts. A lot of the other guys, including Barry Hilton, Mark Lotring, will say to him, Trevor, too soon. You're only 2 years in the game, too soon for a one-man show. You need to give it about 5-7 years so you're fully established. You're not going to sell out. Lyric theater, full house, Trevor Noah, one-man show. He gets on the stage, he kills it. We even remember Daywalker 2, he bombed. If you watched it, you know what I'm talking about. It's crazy. And he had this rhetoric about him that said, I'm not going to be vulgar in telling jokes. I'm going to own my stuff and see if I can create clean comedy where families can come. Brilliant. And his entire way of telling jokes is stories. So he'll tell a story, then he'll pull out the jokes. If you've watched some of his latest shows where he talks about Jacob Zuma rolling his eyes, you remember that line and he says, and where are my eyes now? It's crazy. Trevor Noah then goes on, does a whole lot of things in South Africa, has his own talk show, was an ambassador for Cell C, moves to the US. And when he moves to the US...
From Comedy Central's World News headquarters in New York, this is The Daily Show with Trevor Noah.
Right, The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. When you took over the show, you remember what people were saying, like, he'll never make it. This is like too big. Jon Stewart, legend, and he is. Because now, Trevor Noah was known for like cracking jokes about Jacob Zuma, Julius Malema. Now you're in America, you can't talk about Julius Malema, but thank God for Trump. It's worse. I think this is what Trevor Noah's day looks like. He wakes up in the morning like, I have some coffee. News. What's he saying? Huh? What an amazing guy. Copy, paste. Boom, he's got a show. Half of his show is Donald Trump. But things can change. Like imagine if Donald loses and you really get someone who's really powerful. He's going to have to change his game. They said to Trevor, like, how are you going to fill these big shoes of Jon Stewart? He said, no, I brought my own shoes. Yeah, you might laugh, but think about that. How many of you have taken over somebody else's role in the environment, and when you came in, you were worried about how do I do as good as this person did? Bring your own shoes. Bring your own personality, your own color, your own charisma. Build on what exists. Don't be like the public protector who decided to change the channel. Okay, that's another conversation for another day. Trevor Noah goes on to interview the world's most powerful man. If you've ever been to a Trevor Noah show, you know that he doesn't do comedy dressed like that. It's jeans, sneakers, hoodie. But here, you're dealing with the world's most powerful man at the time, Obama. You've got to show up, dress up, do a lot of prep work, plan your questions. You can't be cracking jokes. You've got to ask the tough questions. And if you watch the interview, it was brilliant. It was witty. What type of conversations are you having with your customers, with your colleagues? Are you showing up? Are you dressing up? Imagine if I just rocked up, dressed all weird. I am a bit weird with my blue suede shoes. Some of the stuff's got to look cool and sexy. But I've got to show a bit of respect. And you do that with your customers. Show up. Let me smell you before I see you. Like, oh, Anais, you're looking cool. You're smelling fresh. And he did that with Obama. But not only that, he writes a book taking responsibility for his life. He's owning his stuff. This book, bestseller right now. If you followed it even in South Africa, it's done very well. It's still on the top 10 charts today, and it's over a year old. Not only that, Time magazine conferred on him one of the next generation leaders. Let me tell you what happens. Next generation leaders, Time magazine kind of finds like the top 15 people they think will be the leaders of tomorrow in whatever discipline that they're in. And in this year that he did it, this was 2017, there were about 14 of them, 3 of them from Africa, the rest from Europe and the US. But Trevor's on the cover. Not the other Oaks. Trevor's on the cover. That's powerful. Great ambassador for our country. Then he wins the MTV Awards. Look at Snoop, shame. like he's looking there, almost wants to just rap. How'd you win, huh? How'd you win? How'd you win, huh? 2 awards. The children love him. Talk about relativity. He can relate to different audiences. Sometimes we get stuck, and we get stuck in this notion that says, stick to your lane, own your path. Right path. You're bigger than that. Sometimes there's more paths. Own them all until you find your own happiness and your own niche. He wins the NAACP 2 awards, 1 for best book, 2 for best newcomer in literary work. But not only that, those of you who follow him on Instagram will know he does this behind the scenes, in between the scenes actually. He's won an award for that, an Emmy nogal. Let me tell you, you can be a great speaker, great comedian. Ultimately, if you can't engage with people, it doesn't help. And you'll see, if you've ever seen Trevor Noah live, he gets up, he cracks his joke, he's got his script, and then suddenly someone stands up, next thing he's having a conversation with this person. You've got to be on your feet. That's what happens even in business. You might think you're going to come with your script to a client and start selling all your J&J products and services, and suddenly the guy says, well, actually, we've got something else from another supplier. They're cheaper. Think on your feet and be able to adjust your conversation. He does that so powerfully. That book, Born a Crime, is going to be made into a movie, and Lupita Nyong'o, she will be directing it, and she'll also be acting as his mom. Trevor Noah has also formed a foundation, educational. Last year, this is what he did, launched it. Brilliant. He's actually giving back. So if you had to book him to come to a J&J conference, I mean, you're not going to spend less than R1 million just for his fee. He's unapologetic about it because he knows his worth. He's going to travel business class or first class. He's going to put him up in a 5-star, and he comes with all his guys, and they've got serious tech riders, so you have to have all the champagne in the rooms and Nando's because he's going to need it. But powerful. I want to show you a quick video. I'll give you my 2 charges. I'll sing and we'll close. This is taken from Son of Patricia. If you've got Netflix, go and watch it. Hilarious. Hilarious. He starts the show, and I'm talking about taking responsibility and owning your stuff. Trevor Noah is a brilliant comedian. He talks about how to own, he talks about trap music. Like, I'm a jazz guy, I love my gospel music. But trap, I've got a son, Gen Z, he's 16 years old. All he does is trap music. It's hip-hop on steroids. It's crazy. He says whenever he listens to trap music, it sounds like a little toddler who's complaining about life. But look how he actually demonstrates. You know what? It takes a lot of thinking to actually put this idea. He must have thought about how can I actually illustrate this trap music. And boom, this is what he does.
Yeah, every single song is the same. Every trap song to me sounds like a toddler complaining about life.
Like if you don't listen to trap music, this is what that All My Friends Are Dead sounds like for real. This is it.
Die, push me to the edge. All my friends are dead. Push me to the edge.
I don't like hip hop, but anyway, you get the point. It's about owning your stuff. In fact, if you watch that whole show, at the end he talks about nigger. Who has watched it, by the way? The nigger part is amazing, right? Because he says in that part, he says like, I'm not offended by the word nigger, because where I grew up, it wasn't a word. We had another word. Nigger wasn't it. He says, but actually, no one in Xhosa, we have a word called nigger. It means to give. But it's brilliant. You must check it out. Then he goes on, he says, like, for example, mina ngizoniga wena, wena uzoniga bona. And he goes on about this whole nigger thing. And then he demonstrates in an example, he says, when I was growing up with my young brother, Isaac, we used to have a lot of arguments and fights. And he remembers one day, Isaac was crying out to his mom. And Isaac was like, Mom, and does the whole trap thing to connect it to the beginning. Hey, very intelligent. And then the mother says, what's wrong? Trevor took my toys. And Trevor tries to rationalize, I didn't really take my toy, take his toys. And then the mother says, Trevor, nigger. And then the young brother says, nigger, please. It is hilarious. Go check it out. But this is a great example and a great story of someone who's taken responsibility for their decisions. My question to you is, what have you done? How are you going to leave this conference today? What type of decisions are you going to make? What is your narrative going to be? Will people look back at some point in your career and say, you know what, that guy's owned their stuff. That girl's owned their stuff. They made decisions, they followed through. So my 2 charges before we close is this. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players ever, says, you must expect great things of yourself before you can do them. It's a mindset thing. Expect them before they even happen. And then this author, Hal Elrod, he says this: let today be the day you give up who you've been for who you can become. It's quite related, but it starts in our minds. You might not be there yet, but if your intention is clear about where you want to go in this business, you are able to take that lead. And I hope you enjoyed it. So I'm going to close now and sing, and I say this is solo. But you can join me later. Maybe we can even rehearse it quickly. Let's see what the key is. Right, so I'm very fast on music. Dun, dun. I want you to say, "Way, way, way, way." Let's do that. Way, 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 way. Got it? Second verse. Don't be singing with me from the get-go. It's my song. Let's go. You know the song, right? I hope you enjoy it. This is not Idols. It's just Alex, your humble servant. The higher you build your barriers, the taller I become. The further you take my rights away, the faster I will run. You can't deny me, you can decide to turn your face away. No matter, 'cause there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone, but oh no, there's something inside so strong. Oh, there's something inside so strong. Are you ready? It's coming now. The more you refuse to hear my voice, the louder I will sing. You hide behind the walls of Jericho. Your lies will come tumbling. Deny my space in time. You squander wealth that's mine. My light will shine so brightly it will blind you. Sing along. Because there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, there's something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.